Hello friends, tonight we dive into the extraordinary story and oddly narrow career of a man whose dreams, sadly, came with a price. Before you settle in, hit like and subscribe only. If you truly enjoy this channel, drop a comment with your location and time. It's always fun seeing viewers worldwide. Now, lower the lights, maybe let a fan hum softly, and let's step into tonight's tale together. Morning routine. Your day begins long before the first ray of sunlight touches the golden roofs of the forbidden city. Sleep, for you, is a luxury measured not in hours but in fragments. The rooster in the outer courtyards has barely stirred when your eyes snap open. Habit, not rest, pulls you from your mat. The servants' quarters where you lie is dark, cramped, and damp, shared with half a dozen others like you. The air smells faintly of straw, sweat, and the lamp oil that burned too low in the night. You rise silently, because silence is survival. No one greets anyone here. No one dares crack jokes or whisper idle chatter. The first rule hammered into you from the day you entered the palace is simple. Eunuchs do not speak unless spoken to. Every careless word could be twisted, reported, or punished, and so you learn to live in a world of eyes, gestures, and bowed heads. You splash your face with cold water from a chipped basin. The shock is sharp, but it forces you awake. There are no comforts here, no warm cloth, no scented soap. The luxury of bathing belongs to emperors and concubines. You dry yourself quickly on your sleeve, straighten your robe, and wait. Breakfast, if one can call it that, follows. A thin bowl of rice gruel, watery and bland, is all you receive. Sometimes there is a scrap of boiled vegetable, if the kitchens felt generous or if you were fast enough to claim it before others. Forget meat, forget sweets, forget even salt. Those are for people who matter. For you, food is fuel, nothing more. You gulp it down, not because you enjoy it, but because you will not eat again for hours. Hunger is constant, and you have long since learned to quiet it. When the gruel is gone, the real work begins. Before the sun even peaks above the palace walls, you are sweeping courtyards. The stones must gleam, the leaves must vanish, and every trace of dust must disappear. The palace is not simply a home, it is the face of the empire, and that face must never look tired, dirty, or neglected. Next comes incense. Each burner must be cleaned, filled, and lit. The smoke curls upward, delicate and fragrant, masking the sweat and labor of those like you. After that, water for washing is drawn, carried, and set aside for nobles who will soon rise from their silken beds. The emperor's chambers, too, must be prepared. Every pillow fluffed, every mat straightened, every corner inspected. The tiniest flaw, a wrinkle in a robe, a smudge on a teacup, could invite anger, and anger from above is dangerous. You know well the stories of eunuchs beaten, exiled, or even executed for less. Obedience is not merely expected here. It is survival. From the moment your body was cut and reshaped into what it is now, you cease to exist as yourself. You are no longer a man, nor a peasant's son. You are property of the emperor, a tool of the state, a shadow in human form. Your duty is absolute, your individuality erased. The palace is filled with eunuchs, like you, thousands of them, but not all are equal. Most, like you, spend years sweeping floors, fetching water, carrying trays, and performing invisible labor. A few, however, climb higher. They attend directly to the emperor, dress him, serve his meals, and even whisper advice in his ear. Some become powerful figures, feared and respected across the empire. Yet the road upward is lined with danger. To rise, you must master silence, subtlety, and cunning. Show too little initiative, and you remain a servant forever. Show too much, and you are crushed before you can bloom. By mid-morning, the palace begins to stir. Ministers arrive, concubines awaken, and with them, your tasks multiply. You rush to deliver robes of silk, to prepare basins of warm water, to hold trays of jade cups without trembling. The concubines, dressed in layers of elegance, pass by with painted faces and veiled glances. You are the only men permitted near them. That privilege is both your power and your curse. The emperor trusts you precisely because you cannot produce heirs. You are safe to walk the corridors of women that no other man may enter. But with that access comes risk. Concubines see eunuchs as tools, messengers, and sometimes pawns. They whisper requests, slip folded notes into your sleeves, tempt you with bribes. Refuse them, and they resent you. Accept them, and you gamble with your life. If the emperor learns of disloyalty, your punishment will be swift and merciless. By late morning, you are already exhausted. Your back aches from bending, your arms shake from carrying, and yet the day has barely begun. In the main halls, the emperor meets his ministers. Eunuchs stand like statues along the walls, eyes lowered, ears open. You hear everything, but you repeat nothing. That is your role, to witness without existing. Every order, every secret, every whisper of statecraft passes before you, but your tongue must remain locked. To speak without permission is to court death. When the emperor moves, you move. When he eats, you serve. When he gestures, you obey. He is the center of the universe, and you are his shadow. And yet, within this role lies opportunity. Shadows see what light cannot. You hear the true concerns of ministers, the jealousies of concubines, the schemes that swirl beneath the surface of power. You know who is rising, who is falling, and who is moments away from ruin. But knowledge is a double-edged sword. Too much curiosity, and you are suspected. Too much ignorance, and you are useless. The art of being a eunuch is to know everything while appearing to know nothing. To see all, but to reveal nothing. By the time midday approaches, your gruel has long since burned away. Hunger gnaws again, but you ignore it. You stand in place, hands folded, waiting for orders that may or may not come. Sweat trickles under your robe, but you do not move to wipe it. You are invisible, indispensable, and utterly replaceable. This is your life. Not a man, not quite a servant, but something in between. A presence meant to be felt, but never acknowledged. A shadow meant to serve, to watch, to endure. And as the bells of noon echo across the palace, you realize, this is only half your day. The sun still hangs high, and the empire's demands are endless. For you, there is no rest, no escape, no freedom. There is only service, obedience, and the fragile hope that tonight, you will survive to do it all again tomorrow. The palace never truly rests, and neither do you. By the time the sun begins to tilt westward, your legs are already heavy, your back stiff, and your throat dry. Yet rest is not a word that belongs to eunuchs. As the crimson glow spreads across the palace roofs, your duties only multiply. Evening preparations, when the emperor prepares for his evening meal. The palace becomes a storm of silent movement. You and your fellows rush through corridors, carrying trays, arranging dishes, checking every detail twice. The food is not just food, it is ceremony, it is security. Before the emperor even lifts a chopstick, you taste the dishes, not for flavor, but for poison. Every bite you swallow is a risk, but you swallow it anyway, because that is your role, to die before he does. If fate so chooses, the emperor's robes are laid out with meticulous care, his seat polished, his chamber perfumed. Everything must project majesty and perfection. If a candle flickers unevenly, if a dish arrives late, the fury of the Son of Heaven may fall upon you. And when the emperor is displeased, heads roll. Shadows among women after the meal. Another duty begins. The concubines. The emperor may choose one to accompany him for the night, and that choice is never a small matter. Entire families rise or fall based on a single evening's favor. Eunuchs, being the only men allowed near these women, play a dangerous role. You are the messenger, carrying the emperor's summons. You walk the corridors of silk and perfume, announcing his will. Behind painted screens, women prepare themselves, desperate to be chosen. Their eyes sometimes plead with you, silently begging for hints, favors, or secret words of guidance. Some slip gifts into your hands, a piece of silk, a coin, a jade trinket. You accept, or you refuse, but either way, you know every gesture places you on the edge of a blade. To favor one concubine too much is to make enemies of the others. To betray a secret is to invite execution. You must be neutral, impartial, invisible. And yet, even as you play this role, you know eunuchs throughout history have used this exact position to shape the empire itself. By whispering, by choosing how to present a concubine, by subtly influencing the emperor's mood. Eunuchs have decided who becomes powerful and who is forgotten. The palace after sunset as night falls. The palace transforms. The courtyards, once filled with bustle, sink into silence. Oil lamps glow in endless rows, their light casting long shadows against red walls. Eunuchs patrolled the corridors, carrying lanterns, checking doors, guarding entrances. The palace is a city unto itself, and you are its unseen police. When the emperor retreats to his private chambers, a select few eunuchs remain closest. They stand outside, ready to respond to the smallest call. Others, like you, remain nearby, circulating, ensuring that no intruder, no assassin, no fire, no danger approaches. The emperor sleeps behind walls of gold, but it is eunuchs who are the true barrier between him and the world. Secrets of the night. This is also the hour when secrets come alive. Letters are carried under robes, messages whispered in passing. Concubines send words to families outside the palace. Ministers bribe eunuchs to carry reports faster, or to delay them just long enough to shift the balance of power. Every scroll, every whispered phrase, every sealed box becomes a potential weapon. You see it all. You handle it all. You know which minister plots against which concubine weeps for attention, which servant steals a crumb of food. The palace may glitter on the outside, but at night you see its rot, and yet you cannot speak of it. A eunuch's greatest skill is not learning secrets, but burying them deep within his silence. Power and its price among eunuchs. Some choose to remain simple servants, invisible and safe. Others gamble, climbing higher by serving as spies, advisors, manipulators. History remembers eunuchs who rose so high they commanded armies, dictated laws, and even decided who would sit upon the throne. But for every eunuch who became powerful, a dozen more were dragged into dungeons, tortured or executed for overreaching. You live in this tension constantly. One wrong move, one whispered rumor, one enemy in the wrong place, and you vanish. Your body dumped outside the palace, your name erased from record, your life forgotten. And so you balance on a knife's edge, obedient enough to survive, useful enough to matter, silent enough to remain unseen. The weight of identity as midnight approaches. You feel the heaviness, not just of the day's labor, but of your existence. You sacrificed your body to be here. Outside the palace, the word eunuch is spoken with disdain, almost as an insult. To common people, you are neither man nor woman, a broken thing, a creature of pity or mockery, and yet, within these walls, you are indispensable. The empire cannot function without you. Ministers may come and go, concubines may rise and fall, even emperors may change, but eunuchs remain faithful, silent, eternal shadows. You are both despised and essential, powerless and powerful. This is the paradox you live with every single day. The emperors rest when the emperor finally sleeps. Your work is not finished. You and others keep vigil outside his chamber. Should he stir? Should he cough? Should he call out? You must be ready. In an instant, the hours drag slowly, your body yearning for rest, but you do not dare close your eyes. Sleep comes only in short bursts, when another eunuch relieves you. Even then, it is shallow, broken, haunted by the fear of failing your duty. The endless cycle, and so the night passes. The oil in your lantern burns low. The stars fade above the palace roof. A faint chill creeps into the air, and in the distance, the first rooster crows again. Your day has not ended. It has only reset. Soon you will rise again, splash cold water on your face, swallow another bowl of rice gruel, and begin the same duties once more. Days blur together. Weeks, months, years pass, marked only by the rise and fall of emperors, the shifting fortunes of concubines, the endless whisper of secrets. For you, there is no escape. This is your life until death, whether death comes by age, by punishment, or by palace intrigue. Final reflection. What, then, was it like to be a eunuch? It was a life of silence and service, of sacrifice and suspicion, a life where every breath was taken in the shadow of power, but never truly belonging to it. A life where you were trusted more than generals, yet despised more than beggars. You were the hand that carried the empire's secrets, the voice that never spoke, the eyes that saw everything yet remained unseen. And that is the truth of your existence, a man unmade, turned into a tool, condemned to serve, and yet ironically holding the very keys to the empire's heart. The rooster has barely finished its cry when you step into the courtyard with a broom in hand. The stone slab stretched endlessly under your feet, cold with the night's dew, and already your heart pounds not from effort, but from fear of missing a single corner. To outsiders, sweeping might sound like a menial task, but in the forbidden city, it is nothing short of ritual. A leaf left behind, a trace of dust beneath a window, can be seen as disrespect to the emperor himself, and disrespect, even unintentional, carries punishments harsher than hunger. You move with speed, but also with precision. The palace is vast, and eunuchs are countless, yet every courtyard has its owner for the morning. And today, it is you. You sweep until your shoulders ache, until the bristles wear thin, until the white stones glow faintly in the first light of dawn. The task is both humiliating and sacred. Humiliating because you are reduced to dirt's enemy, sacred because the purity of the palace represents the order of the empire. When the broom is put aside, the incense begins. Small bronze censers line the walkways and chambers. They must be polished before they are filled, for even the slightest ash clinging from yesterday is a blemish. You light the sticks carefully, bowing your head as the smoke begins to rise. The scent spreads slowly: sandalwood, jasmine, or sometimes musk depending on the season. The fragrance has a dual purpose: to honor the emperor and to drown out the less noble odors of so many bodies working unseen. After incense comes water. Buckets must be drawn, carried across endless courtyards, balanced carefully on poles across your back. The water is destined not for you, but for nobles. Basins for washing, pitchers for drinking, pots for steeping tea. Sweat clings to your brow even in the cool morning. Still, you push forward, because water delivered too late can spark irritation, and irritation from above is a death sentence. And then the chamber of chambers, the emperor's quarters. To step inside is to enter the eye of the empire's storm. Here, everything must shine. The mat must lie flat, as if woven from the air itself. The bed must be arranged with silken folds that whisper perfection. Robes embroidered with dragons rest on stands, waiting to be carried with reverence. You touch nothing directly with bare hands. Silks and linens are lifted with cloths so as not to soil them. This is no ordinary housekeeping. It is choreography, ritual, and politics woven into labor. One wrong gesture too slow, too clumsy, too bold, and suspicion falls upon you. Suspicion leads to questioning. Questioning leads to punishment. Not all eunuchs remain in these basic duties forever. Some are promoted, though promotion here is not always what it seems. A eunuch may become what many call a glorified butler, managing robes, presenting dishes, standing by doors for hours with hands folded. Such a post might sound small, but within these walls, proximity is power. The closer you stand to the emperor, the more valuable your silence becomes. But even greater roles exist. Some eunuchs are chosen to serve not only as butlers, but as eyes and ears of the throne. These men carry messages, observe ministers, and whisper reports of intrigue. They become informant spies in silken robes. Ministers who underestimate them quickly find their secrets laid bare. Above them still are the imperial advisors, eunuchs, who rise to an almost unthinkable station. Stripped of family and children, they dedicate their entire existence to the service of one man. And in return, they wield influence rivaling that of generals and scholars. They may counsel the emperor on appointments, policies, or even wars. Yet this power is a serpent, beautiful, dangerous, and always ready to strike the hand that holds it. You, standing in the emperor's chamber with broom and basin, know these paths exist. You have seen eunuchs rise and fall, exalted one day, executed the next. It is a world where loyalty is currency, silence is armor, and every gesture must be measured. For now, though your world is still the courtyard, the incense, the water, and the chamber, you are one of the invisible many, not yet a whisper in the emperor's ear, only a shadow in his palace. Still, every shadow dreams, because here, even the humblest eunuch sweeping at dawn knows that in the forbidden city, duties may begin with brooms, but they can end with the empire itself resting in your hands. The duties of a eunuch rarely end with broom and basin. For those who endure, who keep their heads lowered and their tongues tied, new paths open, paths that lead not just to chambers, but to corridors of influence. In the forbidden city, service is not a straight ladder, it is a maze, and at every turn, opportunity waits, wrapped in danger. Once the emperor's quarters are prepared, the more trusted eunuchs remain behind. Their task, to serve as living furniture, quiet, motionless, always ready when called. They fetch robes, arrange pillows, pour tea. At first glance, their role seems humble, almost degrading, but in silence lies observation. While ministers debate policies, while concubines whisper jealous complaints, These eunuchs stand in corners like statues, hearing everything. They do not react. They do not respond. They only remember. And memory, in the imperial court, is power. Soon enough, superiors notice which eunuchs can hold their tongues and which ones whisper too freely. Those who prove reliable are entrusted with errands. A sealed letter delivered to a minister, a report carried across the palace, a message whispered into the ear of a concubine. What appears as routine service is in fact the foundation of espionage. Eunuchs become the emperor's hidden eyes and ears. No official dares ignore them, because every spilled word, every careless gesture, might reach the dragon throne by sunrise. This role is treacherous. A eunuch who reports falsehoods risks punishment, while one who reports too much earns enemies. Yet many embrace the danger. After all, in a world where they cannot pass on family names or inheritances, influence is the only legacy left to them. The rise of the informant, the shift from servant to informant, is subtle. One day you are arranging the emperor's cloak. The next, he glances at you and asks a simple question. What did you notice about the minister this morning? It is not just a test of observation, it is a test of loyalty. Your answer must be measured, cautious, yet revealing enough to prove your usefulness. Speak too little, and you seem dull. Speak too much, and you seem dangerous. The art is in balance. Enough truth to be trusted, enough restraint to remain safe. Those who master this balance find themselves pulled deeper into the emperor's confidence. Soon, they carry not only trays but secrets. They learn which minister plots against another, which concubine weeps for lost favor, which general grumbles about resources. And as they gather whispers, they become indispensable. The advisors thrown without a crown, but for a few, the path extends further still. From informant, one may rise to advisor, a position paradoxical in its very existence. Eunuchs, castrated and powerless in society's eyes, can sit closer to the emperor than the highest scholar. How is this possible? The answer lies in trust. Unlike noblemen, eunuchs have no dynasties to defend, no heirs to promote. Their future depends entirely on the emperor's goodwill. For this reason, emperors often confide in eunuchs more than in ministers bound by clan and family ties. The eunuch advisor becomes the emperor's shadow, part servant, part counselor, part confidant. With this role comes staggering influence. Eunuchs have been known to dictate which ministers rise or fall, which wars are fought, which alliances are forged. Some command armies indirectly through whispered advice. Others control access to the emperor, deciding who may speak and who must wait. In many ways, to hold the emperor's ear is to hold the empire itself. Yet this power is never secure. Ministers despise eunuchs, branding them as interlopers, unworthy of politics. Rival eunuchs plot against one another, eager to claim the emperor's trust. And emperors themselves are fickle, showering one servant with favor one year, discarding him the next. The palace is littered with the ghosts of eunuchs who rose too high, too quickly. The eternal risk. Imagine yourself as one such advisor. You sit in the dim glow of lantern light while the emperor speaks of a rebellious province. He asks your opinion. Your heart pounds, for your words may shape armies and destinies, but you must choose carefully. Too bold a suggestion, and the ministers accuse you of overstepping. Too timid, and the emperor wonders why he keeps you near. Even survival is not guaranteed. Eunuchs who gain too much influence have often met tragic ends. Poisoned, strangled, exiled. Their names vanish from records, their families forgotten, their rise remembered only as cautionary tales. And yet, despite the risk, countless eunuchs strive for such positions. Why? Because for men denied the life of husbands and fathers, denied the ordinary legacy of lineage, power is the only immortality. To shape an emperor's will, to leave one's fingerprint on the empire's history. This is the dream that keeps them sweeping courtyards and lighting incense long after their backs ache. The duality of duty. Thus, the life of a eunuch is split in two. Outwardly, he is a servant, silent, obedient, invisible. But inwardly, he is always calculating, remembering, waiting for the chance to rise. Duties begin with sweeping dust, but they end with sweeping politics. Every task is layered with meaning. To pour tea may be to signal loyalty. To arrange robes may be to overhear a secret. To bow silently may be to judge who bows less deeply than he should. The palace is theater, and eunuchs are both stagehands and actors, essential, yet rarely credited. conclusion of duties begin by nightfall. After sweeping, serving, spying, and surviving, you return to the servants' quarters. The day has ended, but your thoughts do not rest, for you know that tomorrow's dawn brings the same ritual again, and with it, another chance to climb from shadow into power. This is the paradox of the eunuch's duty. Stripped of manhood, mocked by society, yet feared within the palace, they are servants who command kings, slaves who rule empires, and shadows who bend history. And it all begins, as it always has, with sweeping a courtyard at dawn. When you first arrive at the forbidden city, you are not trusted with duties of significance. Before incense, before water, before secrets, you must first be broken and rebuilt. This is where training begins. The palace is not simply a residence, it is a stage. Every step, every gesture, every sound is part of a performance scripted centuries before you were born. As a eunuch, your role is not to shine in this theater, but to blend into the scenery. And to do that, every movement must be studied. You are taught how to walk, not too quickly, lest you seem clumsy, not too slowly, lest you appear lazy. Your steps must glide across stone floors as though you weigh nothing, because noise is offense, and clatter is crime. Sandals are chosen carefully, soft-soled, designed for silence. You practice this walk for hours, up and down long corridors, until your body aches and your mind forgets how to move naturally. Next comes the bow. In an empire where hierarchy defines existence, the bow is more than courtesy, it is survival. You learn angles of deference, a shallow nod for fellow eunuchs, a deeper bend for palace maids, a bow from the waist for ministers, and the deepest prostration for the emperor himself. Each must be executed without hesitation, because hesitation looks like arrogance, and arrogance, even imagined, is punishable. But the bow is not just physical, it is spiritual surrender, a daily reminder that you exist not for yourself but for others. When your forehead touches the cold stone, you are reminded that you are a shadow, an echo, a servant carved from silence. Then comes the art of pouring tea. To outsiders, this seems trivial. To the palace, it is everything. Tea is not merely drink, it is ceremony. You learn to hold the teapot with two hands, to tilt it at exactly the right angle, to pour without spilling a single drop. You must refill before the cup empties, but never so soon as to appear impatient. The emperor may not notice if you succeed, but he will certainly notice if you fail. And a noticed eunuch is a vulnerable eunuch. The training drills your body, but more importantly, it reshapes your presence. You learn how to vanish into the background. When two nobles converse, you stand a few steps behind, close enough to serve, far enough to be forgotten. You practice stillness, the art of becoming invisible. You study how to lower your gaze, how to let your breathing soften until it cannot be heard. This invisibility is your greatest shield. The less attention you draw, the safer you remain. Eunuchs who seek recognition too soon are often destroyed by it. The palace does not tolerate ambition revealed too early. It rewards patience, endurance, and the quiet accumulation of trust. Training also extends to the mind. You memorize rituals, schedules, and rules, hundreds of them. You learn which incense to light in winter, which robe the emperor wears for ceremonies, which concubine demands hot tea at night, and which prefers it cooled. Forgetting such details is dangerous, because forgetfulness is taken as disrespect, and disrespect has only one remedy: punishment. Instructors remind you constantly that mistakes are not forgiven here. A wrong word, a misstep, a glance held too long, all can end your career or your life. Fear becomes part of your training. It sharpens you, molds you into the perfect shadow. By the end of this first phase, you are no longer yourself. The peasant boy who entered the palace has disappeared. In his place stands a figure who bows without thought, who walks without sound, who pours without spilling, who exists without demanding notice. This is not simply service, it is survival. Irony is the beating heart of palace life. You were cut, mutilated, reduced to something less than a man. And yet, in this very absence lies your power. For the empire, your emptiness is not weakness, it is reassurance, because you cannot sire children. You are considered harmless. No dynasty of your own can threaten the emperor's bloodline. No hidden son can claim inheritance. And so, unlike ministers and generals, you are trusted in spaces where no other men may tread. You are permitted into the inner court, The women's quarters, an entire world sealed off from outsiders. Here live the empress, the concubines, the attendants, the ladies in waiting. It is a court within a court, full of jealousy, intrigue, and quiet warfare. And you, the eunuch, are its silent witness. At first, your presence seems menial. You carry robes for the empress, deliver tea to a concubine, escort a maid from one hall to another. But over time, you notice something. These women speak freely. Before you, they argue, they conspire, they weep, they seduce all under your watchful eyes. Because you are empty, you are not considered a man at all, merely an extension of the palace itself. That is the emperor's fatal mistake. For what begins as service soon becomes knowledge. You learn which concubine secretly resents the empress, which maid sneaks notes to ministers, which chamber remains unlit at night because its occupant has fallen out of favor. You know who laughs too loudly, who weeps too often, who whispers the emperor's name with longing. And knowledge, in the forbidden city, is power. Slowly, you become a thread in the empire's whisper network. At first, your knowledge is private, secret satisfaction, the one luxury you own. But then you begin to trade it. A eunuch with information can buy safety, favors, even influence. You tell a concubine when the emperor is in a good mood. You warn an attendant of an inspection before it happens. You slip a word to a minister about a rival's misstep. With every whisper, your value grows. The paradox deepens. Though you were stripped of family, you find yourself adopted into hundreds of families, their secrets entrusted to you. Ministers, wives treat you kindly, hoping you will carry their flattery to the throne. Concubines confide in you, hoping you will speak well of them when you serve the emperor. Even the empress herself may turn to you, desperate for loyalty, in a world where love is currency and affection is rare. You, the eunuch, become indispensable not because of who you are, but because of what you are not. No heirs, no threats, no ambitions of dynasty. And yet, in this hollowed body, you carry the empire's most dangerous weapon, information still. Danger lurks behind this privilege. For every whisper you hear, another eunuch hears something else. The palace is a nest of spies, each watching the other, each trading secrets to climb higher. A wrong word can destroy you. A misplaced confidence can see you accused of treason. So, you learn to be careful. Never reveal all you know. Share only fragments, hints, enough to make yourself useful, but never enough to make yourself expendable. You must become a master of half-truths, of silences that speak louder than words. And, in this way, you rise. No general commands more soldiers, no minister drafts more laws, but your whispers reach the emperor's ear. When he asks who should be trusted, who should be punished, you have answers, quiet, measured, but sharp as blades. Thus, the man made less than whole becomes more than any man expected. The mutilation that was meant to enslave you instead becomes your cloak of freedom. For in the palace, the one who cannot father children becomes the one who fathers empires in silence. The irony is complete. Your emptiness has made you the most dangerous presence of all. Once you master silence, once you learn which words to share and which to bury, you discover a terrible truth. Emperors, for all their glory, are often lonely men, surrounded by ministers who fear them, generals who flatter them, wives who compete for affection. The emperor finds in eunuchs a peculiar comfort. You cannot father rivals, you cannot claim thrones, you cannot build dynasties. To him, you appear safe. And in that illusion of safety, doors open. You pour his tea at midnight when insomnia haunts him. You dress him before dawn ceremonies. You hear his doubts, his anger, his laughter, his grief. Sometimes, he speaks more freely to you than to his wives or ministers, because you are both servant and confessional. Here lies the heart of eunuch power. Access, from servants to advisors. History is full of eunuchs who began as silent attendants and ended as kingmakers. They guided emperors in matters of war and peace, deciding which generals received command. They influenced succession, whispering in favor of one prince over another. They controlled the flow of petitions, ensuring some voices were heard while others were silenced. To the emperor, you are a loyal servant, but to the court, you are gatekeeper. A minister who cannot reach the throne must first reach you. And that means gift silk, silver, favors. Slowly, you find yourself richer than the men who govern provinces. Yet wealth is not your true treasure. Influence is. When the emperor hesitates, he may ask you, "What do you think?" And though your answer is cloaked in humility, This unworthy servant dares not advise. Your words nudge him toward decisions that shape the empire. In time, ministers learn to fear you. They smile in your presence, but behind closed doors they curse your name, for they know the truth. The emperor is not always guided by laws, or councils, or rituals. He is guided by whispers, and whispers belong to eunuchs. The shadow court as influence grows. Eunuchs form networks of their own. What began as servants fetching robes evolves into something far more formidable, a parallel government, invisible yet powerful. Within this shadow court, eunuchs assign allies to posts, decide who has audience with the throne, even dictate which memorials reach imperial eyes. Some become patrons of artists, poets, even monasteries, shaping the empire's culture as much as its politics. But power never comes without enemies. Ministers accuse eunuchs of corruption. Generals resent their interference. Scholars write bitter treatises condemning them as parasites. Sometimes accusations are true. Eunuchs take bribes, manipulate appointments, punish rivals. Yet even when corrupt, they are indispensable. No emperor dares purge them completely, for to cut away eunuchs is to blind oneself within the palace. Thus, eunuchs live on a knife's edge, too powerful to be ignored, too hated to be secure. The price of influence for every eunuch who rose to become the emperor's right hand. Another was executed for ambition. Influence is intoxicating, but it is also fatal. If an emperor trusts you too much, you may be accused of controlling him. If he trusts you too little, you are cast aside. A single whisper of treason can undo decades of careful service. Eunuchs have been strangled in secret chambers, burned alive, buried in mass graves, their palaces of wealth reduced to dust overnight. Yet, despite the risks, the pattern repeats through dynasties. Each new emperor swears he will never be ruled by eunuchs. Each reign ends with eunuchs holding the strings of power. Why? Because emperors are human. They crave loyalty in a court where loyalty is scarce, and eunuchs, precisely because of their emptiness, appear to offer it. The legacy of shadows in the end. Eunuchs embody contradiction. They were mutilated to ensure obedience, yet many became the most disobedient of all, ruling, not through armies or laws, but through whispers. Some saved dynasties by warning emperors of conspiracies, by protecting heirs, by managing the chaos of the inner court. They preserved thrones that might otherwise have fallen. Others destroyed dynasties, drowning the court in corruption, silencing loyal ministers, bleeding the empire dry. But whether savior or villain, one truth remains: eunuchs were never powerless. Their emptiness, mocked and pitied, was the very reason they became dangerous. For in a palace where everyone hungered for legacy, they were the only ones who had nothing to lose. That made them fearless. That made them indispensable. That made them the power behind the throne. Life as a eunuch is a constant tightrope walk. Every step measured, every glance analyzed, every word weighed. The palace is not merely walls and gates, it is a living entity, hungry for mistakes. One misstep, one poorly timed smile, one whisper in the wrong ear, and your entire existence can vanish like smoke. Despite the power that eunuchs can wield, they are always vulnerable. Ministers plot, generals scheme, concubines maneuver, and even the emperor's favor is fleeting. In a court where betrayal is common and loyalty is rare, eunuchs live with an acute understanding. You may hold the keys today, but tomorrow the locks might change. Overreaching and its consequence. Eunuchs tempted fate. Some, intoxicated by influence, attempt to dictate imperial policy openly, or punish ministers without consent. These overreaches rarely end well. History is littered with eunuchs who, once too ambitious, were swiftly removed. Some were stripped of their titles, exiled to distant provinces under harsh conditions, forced to endure physical punishment as a warning to others. Others were executed silently, erased from records, as if they had never existed. Even the smallest miscalculations, at the wrong time, touching the emperor's belongings without permission, or accidentally offending a powerful noble, could lead to ruin. Survival required a keen sense of timing, reading moods, and understanding the intricate web of palace politics. The balancing act to endure. A eunuch must constantly balance loyalty with cunning. Absolute loyalty may gain the emperor's favor, but can alienate ministers and generals who view you as an obstacle to their ambitions. Excessive cunning can secure short-term gains, but risks drawing suspicion and wrath. The truly successful eunuchs were those who mastered both subtle, patient, and invisible when necessary. They learned to speak only when spoken to offer advice indirectly, to ensure that credit for decisions always went elsewhere. They became masters of suggestion rather than assertion. When a eunuch guided the emperor, he ensured the emperor believed the idea had originated from himself. This delicate approach allowed influence without inviting enmity. The role of fear was an unavoidable companion. Eunuchs feared both punishment and oblivion. To the emperor, they might appear loyal and indispensable, but every emperor was aware of their power. Fear kept eunuchs vigilant, constantly observing, calculating, and preparing. The shadow of execution or exile hung over even the most powerful, ensuring that arrogance never overtook strategy. And yet, fear could be transformed into power. Eunuchs who were respected and feared for their cunning often controlled the palace. Indirectly, ministers and generals acted cautiously around them, knowing that a misstep could trigger their downfall. The key was to manage perception, appear harmless, loyal, and indispensable while quietly orchestrating events behind the scenes. Political minefields. The eunuch's world was a labyrinth of alliances, rivalries, and subtle traps. One wrong friendship could end in disaster. One enemy underestimated could be fatal. Courtiers constantly tested boundaries, subtly undermining each other, and eunuchs were not immune. They had to learn to discern truth from deception, identify allies from opportunists, and understand the hidden motives behind every smile and bow. Even within their own ranks, eunuchs faced competition. Younger, ambitious eunuchs could challenge established hierarchies, plotting to replace the old guard. Survival demanded not only loyalty to the emperor, but also vigilance against internal rivalries. Only those who combined intelligence, patience, and discretion could survive decades in the palace. Eunuchs lived in a palace that was both gilded and treacherous. Though they served close to the throne, their proximity to power was never entirely safe. Every favor, every privilege, came with a cost. One wrong glance, one misjudged word, could transform safety into peril. The smallest mistake could lead to exile, beatings, or even death. The palace, as a minefield, the imperial court functioned as a delicate ecosystem. Nobles, ministers, concubines, and eunuchs all jostled for influence. In such a system, a eunuch's position was precarious. Trusted to serve, to advise, and to observe, eunuchs were privy to secrets that could make them invaluably deadly. Knowledge was power, but power in the wrong hands could be fatal. One misinterpreted action, a servant caught in a private corridor with a forbidden note, a suspicious delay in delivering a message, or even a fleeting expression of discontent be twisted into evidence of disloyalty. Eunuchs learned to move carefully, ensuring that their every step could withstand scrutiny. Betrayal and hidden threats. Betrayal was endemic. Allies could turn into adversaries overnight. Even fellow eunuchs were potential rivals. Competition for influence often bred enmity. Courtiers and officials outside the eunuch circle could exploit any perceived weakness. False accusations were a common tactic, an insinuation of corruption. A rumor of improper conduct or a claim of negligence could lead to sudden downfall. Eunuchs developed an acute awareness of human behavior. Every word spoken, every gesture, and every glance could carry hidden meaning. They studied the habits of nobles, the temperaments of concubines, and the moods of the emperor. These observations were critical for anticipating threats and mitigating risk. Exile and humiliation was a common punishment for eunuchs who overstepped their bounds. Banished to distant provinces, they endured harsh conditions and social isolation. The palace life, with all its privileges and routines, was replaced by hard labor, cold nights, and the constant reminder of lost status. Exile could be temporary, but for many, it was permanent, the end of influence and the beginning of slow, ignominious decline. Even less severe punishments carried the weight of humiliation. Beatings, public rebukes, and forced menial tasks were designed not only to punish, but also to remind eunuchs of their precarious position. In the rigid hierarchy of the palace, dignity was fragile. Survival demanded both obedience and cunning. Execution and erasure. The ultimate danger was death. Eunuchs who were perceived as threats or who disobeyed imperial commands could be executed, sometimes publicly as a warning, sometimes quietly to erase their existence. In many cases, records of these eunuchs were expunged from archives, their achievements unrecorded and their names forgotten. The knowledge that history itself could eliminate them weighed heavily on all eunuchs. The threat of erasure made strategic caution paramount. Even the most influential eunuch needed to maintain a low profile to ensure that their power never provoked lethal envy or suspicion. Survival meant mastering discretion and the art of subtlety, balancing visibility with invisibility and influence. With safety. Psychological toll. The constant vigilance required a sharp mind and steady nerves. Eunuchs learned to read the slightest changes in tone, the faintest flicker of expression, or the smallest shift in routine. They had to be aware of not only what was happening, but also what might happen. Fear, suspicion, and calculated caution became second nature. Living under perpetual scrutiny created a psychological landscape filled with tension. Friendships were transactional, loyalty conditional, and every interaction a potential risk. The most successful eunuchs cultivated an almost preternatural ability to predict human behavior, making intuition a vital survival skill. While Part 1 explored the immediate dangers and psychological strain of palace life, Part 2 delves into the deeper subtleties of surviving in an environment where loyalty, cunning, and timing determined life or death. For eunuchs, understanding these nuances was not optional, it was essential. The web of intrigue every corner of the palace could conceal a plot. Eunuchs were often caught between competing factions, ministers vying for influence, concubines maneuvering for favor, generals scheming for power, and even the emperor's own family embroiled in internal rivalries. A misstep in loyalty aligning too closely with the wrong faction could quickly lead to ruin. Eunuchs learned to navigate these complex networks, gathering information discreetly while maintaining outward neutrality. They became masters of observation, noting small alliances, hidden resentments, and secret communications. Often, a seemingly trivial remark could reveal a broader conspiracy or impending danger. Strategic alliances to survive. Eunuchs forged strategic alliances with those who could protect or advance them. These relationships were rarely emotional. They were calculated partnerships based on mutual benefit and power dynamics. A well-placed ally among concubines, a sympathetic minister, or a cooperative guard could provide crucial intelligence or intervention at critical moments. However, alliances were fragile. Shifting political winds, sudden promotions, or changes in imperial favor could render a previously trusted ally a liability. Eunuchs had to continuously reassess relationships, balancing trust with skepticism. One wrong alliance could expose them to accusations or manipulation. The subtle art of manipulation was a key survival tool. Eunuchs often influenced palace decisions, indirectly whispering advice to the emperor, shaping the perceptions of concubines, or guiding junior officials. By acting as intermediaries or mediators, they maintained relevance without drawing overt attention. This required psychological acuity. Knowing when to intervene, when to remain silent, and when to feign ignorance could prevent disaster. Eunuchs honed the ability to guide outcomes subtly, ensuring that their actions benefited their standing while minimizing risk. Every word had weight, and every gesture could be interpreted in multiple ways. Dealing with rival eunuchs. Rivalry among eunuchs was both inevitable and dangerous. Competition for favor, access, or responsibility could lead to sabotage, false accusations, or even orchestrated disgrace. Successful eunuchs learned to recognize potential threats early and neutralize them discreetly through persuasion, compromise, or strategic withdrawal. Sometimes, survival meant letting a rival gain temporary advantage, while planning a long-term counterstrategy. Open confrontation was often fatal. Subtlety, patience, and the ability to remain invisible were the tools of the trade. Balancing loyalty and cunning. Perhaps the most delicate skill was balancing loyalty to the emperor and the palace hierarchy. With personal cunning, blind obedience could be exploited, but reckless ambition was fatal. Eunuchs needed to demonstrate unwavering service while quietly ensuring their own security. This balance often manifested in nuanced behaviors, careful observation before action, measured speech, and controlled displays of competence. Eunuchs became adept at reading situations, anticipating moves, and positioning themselves advantageously without ever appearing self-serving. Surviving public and private threats. Eunuchs faced dangers both visible and hidden. Public punishments, beatings, exile, or execution were rare but terrifying. More common were covert threats, whispered accusations, tampered documents, or subtle manipulation by those in power. Recognizing these threats required constant vigilance. Even mundane routines could harbor peril. A misdelivered message, an overheard conversation, or a misplaced document could trigger suspicion. Survival meant treating every task with precision, maintaining impeccable discretion, and ensuring that actions could withstand scrutiny, endurance, and legacy, despite the hazards. Eunuchs who mastered these arts wielded considerable influence. They became the invisible hands that shaped policy, controlled information flow, and mediated palace disputes. Their emptiness became a shield, allowing them to move where others could not, observe what others could not see, and survive when others perished. Yet, the specter of risk never disappeared. Every day in the palace was a careful negotiation between visibility and invisibility, influence and discretion, loyalty and cunning. Eunuchs who thrived understood that survival was not just about avoiding danger, was about anticipating it, shaping it, and, when necessary, outmaneuvering it. The eternal lesson ultimately. The life of a eunuch was a lesson in vigilance. Every privilege came with potential peril, every favor with a hidden cost. To live and even thrive within the palace walls demanded intelligence, patience, and an almost preternatural sense of timing. The most successful eunuchs did not merely serve the emperor. They mastered the palace itself, navigating its treacherous currents while preserving their lives, their dignity, and, occasionally, their legacy. As the sun dips below the horizon, the palace transforms. The noise of the Datha, clatter of dishes, the shouts of guards, the laughter of courtiers fades into hushed whispers, and the occasional creak of heavy doors. But for a eunuch, the day is far from over. Evening marks a new phase of duty, where vigilance, discretion, and endurance define survival. The palace at night, the corridors, once crowded with officials and servants, become a labyrinth of shadows. Lanterns flicker against walls, casting uncertain shapes. The emperor retires to his private chambers, attended by concubines and guards, and yet the eunuch remains a silent presence, invisible but indispensable. Evening work often begins with routine checks. Courtyards must be inspected for security. Gates and doors are carefully locked, ensuring that no intruder, internal or external, can penetrate the inner sanctum. A single lapse in vigilance could compromise the safety of the emperor, the concubines, and even the eunuchs themselves. Silent servitude. During these hours, the eunuch's role shifts subtly. The day demanded visible service, cleaning, fetching water, attending ceremonies. Night calls for silence, discretion, and the ability to move unnoticed, carrying messages through the dimly lit halls, refilling the emperor's wine, or ensuring that delicate conversations remain uninterrupted, requires grace and absolute control over one's presence. Mistakes at night are costly. A shadow misplaced, a footstep too loud, or a message delivered incorrectly could unravel hours of careful preparation. The ability to vanish into the background becomes more than a skill, it becomes survival. Guardian of secrets. Evening also amplifies the eunuch's role as the keeper of secrets. Conversations that cannot be overheard during the day become routine. In the dimly lit private chambers, lovers whisper, ministers plot, and the emperor confides in those deemed trustworthy. Eunuchs, by virtue of their perceived emptiness and loyalty, are often the sole witnesses to these moments. Handling secrets is an art. The eunuch must memorize, interpret, and sometimes manipulate information, all while maintaining perfect discretion. One misplaced word or careless glance could provoke suspicion, anger, or even deadly retribution. Delivering messages. Messengers come and go, but not all can navigate the private corridors. Eunuchs often serve as trusted couriers within the palace itself, carrying instructions from the emperor to generals, ministers, or concubines. They traverse the shadowed hallways, ensuring that communication flows seamlessly. Timing, precision, and discretion are paramount. A misdelivered message could spark chaos. These nocturnal tasks require endurance. The palace sleeps, but the eunuch must remain alert, anticipating every eventuality. Fatigue is a luxury they cannot afford. A moment's lapse in attention could lead to disaster. An open door, an overheard whisper, or a missed signal. That as the night deepens, the palace settles into an eerie rhythm. Most of its inhabitants have succumbed to sleep, leaving only the eunuch's guards and the occasional minister or messenger to move through its shadowed corridors. For a eunuch, the night is a blend of danger, duty, and subtle influence a time when invisibility and alertness become the keys to survival. Navigating danger even under the cover of darkness, the palace is far from safe. Intrigues and rivalries do not rest with the setting sun. Some courtiers may attempt secret negotiations, others may plot vengeance, and enemies of the emperor may find ways to infiltrate the seemingly secure grounds. A eunuch must constantly evaluate each shadow, each whispered sound, and each footstep. The slightest hesitation can be fatal. If a eunuch fails to intercept a hidden threat or deliver a crucial message, it could lead to political disaster or worse, personal punishment. Yet these dangers sharpen the senses and create an acute awareness unmatched by any daytime service. The palace at night is a battlefield of knowledge, timing, and perception. The emperor's watchful eye in many cases. The emperor's trust in eunuchs reaches its peak after dusk, as he retreats into private discussions or indulges in late-night reflections. Eunuchs become his closest, most loyal attendants. They serve not only as aides but as confidants, observing moods, reactions, and subtle shifts in alliances that might otherwise go unnoticed. This access grants a unique form of power. A eunuch who understands the subtle signs of discontent or deception can influence outcomes without ever appearing to intervene. Their observations allow the emperor to make informed decisions, often giving eunuchs a quiet but decisive role in shaping the course of the empire. Delivering urgent orders is often the time when urgent orders must traverse the palace swiftly and discreetly. The eunuch moves like a shadow, avoiding noisy floors, bypassing sleeping guards, and silently delivering directives to generals, concubines, or secret allies. Timing is critical. A delayed message can result in missed opportunities or exposed secrets. This courier work demands both physical agility and mental precision. The eunuch must memorize paths, anticipate obstacles, and maintain a calm demeanor under pressure. Every step must be measured. Every interaction must be calculated. One slip, one audible sound, and the precarious balance of the palace could be disturbed. Guarding forbidden knowledge, many secrets come alive only at night. Hidden alliances, whispered confessions, or clandestine plans. Eunuchs often witness these confidential moments firsthand. They must store and interpret information with care, deciding when to act, when to report, and when silence is the safest strategy. The ability to navigate this clandestine world requires not only discretion but intelligence and emotional control. Secrets are power in the palace, and the eunuch's survival often hinges on their ability to manage this knowledge without drawing attention to themselves. The fat weight of endurance. Evening duties extend far into the night. While others rest, eunuchs remain alert, anticipating needs before they are voiced. The work tests the limits of human endurance, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Hunger, fatigue, and isolation are constant companions. Yet there is a certain mastery in these hours. The eunuch, who thrives in darkness, becomes indispensable, their presence silently woven into the fabric of the palace. They move with purpose, aware that their invisibility is their shield and their influence is their weapon. A life between shadows. The night underscores the paradox of the eunuch's existence. They are both central and invisible, powerful and powerless, trusted yet vulnerable. Each shadowed corridor and whispered conversation highlights the delicate balance between duty and survival. The palace at night is a living entity, shifting and breathing around its nocturnal caretakers. Eunuchs navigate its secrets, protect its inhabitants, and ensure that the machinery of empire continues without disruption. Their invisibility, honed through years of training and discipline, allows them to act where others cannot. Conclusion of evening. By the time the first light of dawn creeps through the palace windows, the eunuch has fulfilled another night of silent service. Their body is weary, but their mind remains alert, carrying the weight of secrets and the assurance of continued survival. Invisible yet indispensable, the eunuch's evening is a testament to patience, intelligence, and the quiet power that comes from moving unseen. Psychological strain. Evening duties carry a psychological weight distinct from daytime labor. The isolation, the silence, and the perpetual vigilance create an environment of constant mental pressure. The eunuch must maintain composure under the watchful eyes of unseen observers, knowing that a single misstep could cost them everything. Yet there is a paradoxical power in this invisibility. While the world outside may see them as voiceless or powerless, within the palace, eunuchs command knowledge, influence, and the ability to act unnoticed. Their watchfulness allows them to intervene subtly, prevent conflicts, or deliver critical information that shapes decisions at the highest level. A constant presence nightwork blends physical endurance with strategic thinking. The eunuch must anticipate not only the immediate needs of the emperor, but also the shifting alliances, whispered secrets, and potential threats that permeate the palace. Every step, every glance, and every interaction is calibrated for efficiency, safety, and discretion. The eunuch's life is a continuous negotiation between visibility and invisibility. To be seen too much is dangerous. To be absent is unacceptable. Evening, therefore, is not a respite from duty, but a crucible that tests loyalty, intelligence, and self-control. As the sun rises and the palace stirs with life, the eunuch retreats to the quiet corners of the empire, having completed another cycle of unseen labor. Their world is one of paradox, both servitude and subtle influence, invisibility and indispensable presence. Every bow, every whispered word, and every shadowed step has contributed to the delicate balance of power within the palace walls. What we often overlook in history is the quiet mastery of those who lived in the margins. Eunuchs were more than servants. They were guardians of secrets, couriers of critical messages, and sometimes the invisible architects behind imperial decisions. Their survival demanded not only obedience but strategy, emotional intelligence, and the rare skill of remaining unnoticed while knowing everything. By walking through a day in the life of a eunuch, from the early morning rituals to the secretive duties that stretch deep into the night, we begin to understand the nuanced complexities of palace life. It wasn't simply a matter of carrying water or lighting incense. It was a test of loyalty, wit, and resilience. Each moment carried potential peril, and yet, those who navigated this world with skill found power in places most would never imagine. If this journey through history has intrigued you, there's so much more to uncover. Dive deeper into the lives of the forgotten. Explore the hidden corridors of empires, and discover the human stories that shaped history. If you enjoyed stepping into the shadows of the palace, hit the like button, subscribe for more fascinating historical insights, and comment below on which part of a eunuch's life surprised you the most. Don't forget to share this video with fellow history enthusiasts. After all, history is best experienced together. Your support ensures we can continue bringing these hidden stories to light.